Today is Monday, May 13th, 2013. This is the start of an interview with Mr. Robert Jackson at the Clinton McComb Library, 40,900 Romeo Plank Road, Clinton Township, Michigan. This is in partnership with the Veterans History Project and RSVP of Macomb. Mr. Robert Jackson is 65 years old, born November 18, 1947. Mr. Jackson currently resides at 40,809 Ray Drive in Clinton Township. My name is Dave Brousseau and I'll be the interviewer. And Miss Ann Bartlett will be the videographer. Mr. Jackson, would you state for the record the branch of service in which you serve?
United States Air Force.
Okay. You are not were not a local resident when you started. Where were you born?
I was born in New York City, Manhattan.
Ooh. Right on Manhattan? Or?
On Manhattan, 150th Street, between Amsterdam and Broadway.
You have two half-brothers?
Two half-brothers, yes.
Where did you go to school?
I went to high school, it was Commerce High School. Junior high was Stitt Junior High, and PS 146 was my elementary school. All in New York, all in Manhattan.
Were there some significant experiences that went on while you were going through high school?
Well, significance was I dropped out.
Why?
Well, there was some crazy things going on in New York City back in the 60s.
That's a good way to describe it.
It's 1965, 66.
Do you love your mom?
Yes, very much.
Do you know she probably saved your life?
Yes, she did.
All right, tell us about that.
Well, after I dropped out, I worked little small jobs, and I still really wasn't doing anything. And one day she came home from work. She had about 5 brochures, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and said pick one.
And there were no other choices?
There were no other choices. It was no, I don't want to. It was pick one, because you're getting out of here. And I selected the Air Force.
I can't believe that's incredible.
Well, she saw what was going on in New York City at that time. It was
this is 1965,
1965, 64. The heroin had moved into New York City and was taking out souls on a daily basis. My mom saw what was going on. I wasn't in school, so she made a move.
How far were you from graduating?
I think I was pretty much in 11th grade. I hadn't gone to the 12th. And you know, it was a combination of just hanging with the wrong crowd. That's all it was. And
so you picked the Air Force.
Picked the Air Force.
Why?
To me, it was the safest one. I didn't want to join the Army or the Marine Corps or the Navy. Air Force, the big thing was I thought they could give me a skill. I had no idea what I wanted to do or anything like that. I went in. You had
enough foresight to know that you needed a skill?
Yes. 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 Listen, my background, my family, very intelligent. I have at least, they were all passed right now, 5 uncles in the police force in New York City. Transit cops, housing cops, regular city cops. And always in the back of my mind, one of the things that really didn't get me too deep into the bad stuff that was going on in the streets is I knew if I got caught,
hell would pay.
Hell would pay. What they did to me in jail had no no meaning to what these 5 uncles could really put on me. And that was another reason why I was out of there too. So,
Were you aware of what was going on in the world situation?
yeah, we all had friends that were in Vietnam. I had about 3 buddies, and that was another reason. I had one buddy that two guys that were Army and Marine Corps. I never forget. We got word. One of the guys came back, and he told us he spent, I guess, 4 to 5 hours on his back in a rice paddy, just laying down, because if he would have stood up, he would have got shot. He had VC on one side and Marine Corps on the other, and how he got trapped in there. But that was one of the stories he came home with. We heard another guy jumped. He was paratrooper, I think 82nd, and they were jumping into Da Nang. Not Da Nang, but they were jumping into Vietnam on Christmas Day. So these things I had forethought and heard and said, well, you know, Air Force looks like the safest way if I have to go. But I had 4 years in the Air Force, and you know, there was a chance maybe I wouldn't go, but that didn't happen. I did boot camp, well, basic training. We were supposed to go to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, and there was a spinal meningitis outbreak, and they closed Lackland and sent us all to Amarillo. And Amarillo was had been closed, I think, since the Korean War, or I don't know, something like that. And we were actually pulling the boards off the windows, sweeping out the barracks, and then we went in there and lived. Put linen on the beds and everything. We were the first ones in there, and we did basic. I did basic in Amarillo. After that, we got orders. Some of us went directly to a base. Some of us went to school. I went to tech school.
What was the decision as to where you were going to go?
Well, we had the aptitude test with the recruiter. And there were some funny things. As far as administrative, he came back and told me if they gave me a pencil, I'd stab myself with it or something like that. They went to the mechanical issue. They liked I did good in that test, but they were trying to see maybe you can go into aircraft maintenance. But the drawback was I was colorblind.
You didn't know that.
Well, I had a sense of it, but it was never really brought out. I think I kind of knew. It was one of those things you know, it wasn't that monumental to me. I mean, I could live a normal life. I still live a normal life. But the thing was, it was very positive there, and the whole thing was, you know, aircraft is based on colors as far as hydraulics, electrical, everything.
Yeah.
And I could really do some damage with that if I did some bad things. So I went to automotive school.
Now, you spoke about doing various jobs while you were in high school or just after.
Mm-hmm.
Was that what probably tipped the scale to engine repair?
Nah.
No.
Because what I did, I was I worked for a place called Letter Perfect, and back in '66 we didn't have all these Xerox machines and computers. And what this company did was, businesses would send letters, business types, they would type them out, have them ready to go into the mail and stuff like that. And I was a carrier. I'd grab them, jump on the subway, jump on the bike, however I could get there, and they paid car fare, and I'd go down there and deliver everything, and bring back whatever else they wanted.
Where do you think you got the automotive mechanics?
My mother pushed me. I mean, I had a erector set at a very young age. I had a train set. I put things together around the house. You know, my mother, you know, we always had a screwdriver in our hand.
Was there a father in your life?
Well, yes, there was my father, but there was a divorce early on, and she basically was a single mother raising me. So, and We did a lot of good things. My mother used to take me down to museums every weekend and stuff like that. And she said she used to have to drag me out, but by the end of the trip, I was enjoying it. You know. And growing up in New York City, you got the best museums in the world. Oh yes, what you see here is her total effect.
All right, so you find out that aircraft maintenance is not the ticket. Is there anything else in the Air Force that moves, that needs maintenance?
Automotives.
One would not associate automotive with the
No,
Air
and
Force,
that's-
but you're right, they have motor pools, car pools, truck pools.
Everything. For every piece of aircraft that you see, there's probably 100 vehicles associated with that. From refueling down, maintenance, everything.
So you shifted over to that.
Well, yeah, you were directed. It wasn't
How long
appointed.
were you involved in that?
After basic, I went to Rantoul, Illinois, and did a basic automotive mechanics course, a 3 or 4 weeker, not sure. And then I got my 30 days leave again, and then I was stationed in Wichita, Kansas, McConnell Air Force
What
Base.
did your mom think when you came home?
Oh, she was happy.
I'm sure she would be.
She was happy. I mean,
Somebody pressed the right buttons.
that's right. I was in good hands at that point. The only thing that was ever in back of everybody's mind and was going on was Vietnam.
Yeah. So you had no indication whether you were going there or not yet.
No, nobody really does. Like I was saying, is that it's always there as we worked every day at the Air Force Base and everything else. It was always who got orders and where did they go. I mean, mostly everybody that got orders was going to Vietnam. Some lucky ones didn't. But basically, it depended on your career field. Aircraft, communication, mechanics was next, auto mechanics.
And did you go to Fort Polk?
No,
No, that's one of the conditions.
well, that's Army, that's Army.
That's right. That's
Everything,
right, that's
everything
right.
for Air Force, you went to the West Coast if you were going to Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I can never remember that base, but it was either McCord or something. And we took off from there. And basically, I got my orders one day. 2 weeks later, I was on 30 days leave. And after that, I had a ticket. I was landing in, for a better sense, as Travis Air Force Base. And then we took off from there.
What'd your mom think of that?
Oh, she wasn't too happy.
I'm sure.
She wasn't too happy. She was, you
She
know...
must have been, did I press the wrong button?
No, not really. She had that in the back of my mind. I think it was the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And she kind of knew I could take care of myself, you know. And basically, I was not in the infantry. I was not carrying a gun around. I was, as it says, as they say, in the rear with the gear. So support, total support.
So, brand new experience. You land in South Vietnam.
So I
Barely?
landed in Da Nang Air Force Base.
Right near the battle lines. I think the name is up there close.
Well, Da Nang was close to the DMZ. In Vietnam, there was no flat-out battle line because the enemy came in from anywhere. We landed in Da Nang, and it was, the weird thing about it is everyone on that plane that hit Da Nang the same time, so we all had 365 days from that point walking off that plane. So you were going to see people that you landed with a year later when you got back on that plane. Not necessarily everyone, but you were going to see some folks. Because we had Army also in there on that plane. We had Air Force. Mostly it was Air Force, really. And we banked into that plane, our aircraft, and I think it was United, banked into Vietnam and Da Nang, and we just saw that mountainous country, and we knew it was going to be a new experience. And you get off the plane, you find out, you know, you're running through the airport trying to find out where you need to go, and basically they told us, and we hopped the bus, and boom, I was in Da Nang Air Base. We walked in there, they gave you your jungle fatigues, mosquito net. I was unfortunate, I didn't get one the first night, and I went back to see the first sergeant next morning, and I had so many mosquito bites all over me. And the first sergeant was like, "What happened?" You know, and I said, "Sir, I didn't get a net last night to put over my bunk." So he chewed out one of the other airmen in there for not getting that for me. But that was one of the mosquitoes. They were like B-52s flying around there.
It's a different environment because there's a lot of mixtures.
Well, yes. A lot of, as you say, nationalities, different people, but you learn there's
Friends and enemies.
friends and enemies. But when you get tied into something like that, where you work day in and day out with somebody, everyone still has their idiosyncrasies and what they don't want. But when it comes down to work, you work. And the biggest thing I learned over there for that complete year is, in order to make that time go by fast, you need to be working. And working is what we busy. Because when I hit the ground, we were working 13 days straight, 12-hour days, one Sunday off. And then we worked 13 more days straight, 12 hours, one Sunday off.
What the hell else did you have to do?
That's it. There was no going downtown at Fred Da Nang. Could not go off base. So, you know, we had, somebody would always come up with a case of steaks. And after working all day, somebody would say, okay, we got maybe 4 cases of steaks, 24 steaks in a case. So we'd be out in the back of the hooch, cooking.
Where in the world did all this come from? Black market?
No, because the steaks were always marked U.S. grade, USDA. I don't think any of the drugs came from the black market. The big thing, not so much the drugs, I don't want to get on that, but the changing over what they call MPC, military payment certificates. And there was a lot of, if you were going on leave, someone would always try to say, you know, hey, why don't you change this over to, you know, American money for me, you know. And there was a lot of that going on. But it was too scary to get into stuff like that, because there was no secrets in too much. Everybody knew what everybody else was doing. So you kind of stayed away from that. We were so busy. Our days was like, you worked those 12 hours, and we were maybe, I'd say about 10 miles away from where we worked. And we had a 40-foot enclosed trailer with benches on it, and tractor that would pull us. And every morning, because where we had to go, the squadron, which was 366 Transportation Squadron, we would file out of the barracks, go down to chow hall and eat. Once we walked out of the chow hall, usually our trailer was sitting out there. And
So they bring the trailer to you?
they bring the trailer up. That was the best way to get us around. You jump on the trailer.
What were you working on?
Huh?
What were you working on in the trailer?
Oh, we weren't working on anything. That was transportation.
Oh, okay.
The trailer was to take us that 10 miles down,
Gotcha.
and we had everybody. It wasn't a point, because if you missed the trailer, you had to go see First Sergeant until you missed the boat. So you don't want to do that. You don't want, because you'd be painting rocks for
It
most
was
of the
always in
day.
a bad mood.
Sometimes, but when you were where you're supposed to be, you got in a bad mood. So,
Was race an issue like it was in New York?
There was racism going on over there. There were little things like when I worked at Da Nang for about 4 months, and then I was transferred to Phuket Air Base. Now, it was a TDY, temporary duty station, and I was sent down there.
That was further south.
That was further south, Phuket. We had Quy Nhon downtown, which was on limits. We could go downtown in Quy Nhon. When I was at Phuket, we could jump a bus and go downtown, have a few drinks, talk to the local girls, and that's where I saw a little bit of the racism, because we had...
Talk to the local girls?
Oh yeah, they spoke English.
Really?
Okay, in order to make that money, they had to be able to talk to us.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Whatever was going on, by booze, comfort, a woman, whatever, they spoke quite good English. It was a little broken, but they spoke very good English. Okay. It was not a point where we had to learn Vietnamese, no. And anyway, while down there, they had the white bars and the black bars.
Really?
The white bars were playing Johnny Cash and Coming Around the Mountain, whatever. And the black bars, we were playing James Brown. Black and I'm Proud. Okay. Now, what the big thing was, you didn't want to go, if you were black, you didn't want to go to white bars and have to go, listen to all that bullshit. Excuse me. You pretty much hung with the brothers who were black, and you had a good time.
And the girls didn't seem to care about the...
Well, in the white bars, there was a few things like the rumors spread that the brothers or the blacks had tails and stuff like that. Yeah, well, that was it. And there was no love lost. When we were out there partying, there was no love lost between us. But when you went back to the base, you worked. And, your work affected everybody else's work. So you got along. But once work was over, we partied. I mean, and there was, I don't want to say, I had some good buddies that weren't black, and we hung out. And I had some very good times with them. But, a lot of times the race kind of pushed you towards things. So, but, again, the whole thing was getting back into the world. We always talked about that. When we finished work at the end of the day, everybody went back to the hooch. We go get off the trailer or whatever transportation I had when I was down in Phuket.
Well, the hooch is just your...
Hooch is the barracks.
Barracks.
That was...
But they were individual barracks or
No.
just big barracks?
They were a big barracks, open bay, and they were open bay for a while because there were 2 stories, and I don't know how many beds we had in, but somehow we got a hold of plywood, so we started making cubicles. A cubicle with maybe 4 bunks or 2 bunks in it. You could get anything you wanted down in BX. We would go down there and buy huge and beautiful tape recorders, turntables, speakers, and we'd have music playing throughout the hooches. No television, excuse me, no television. Refrigerators, those little small square things, and we have them full of beer, food, whatever we could buy from them. Oh yeah, we had that. Yeah, well, you had those barracks, we didn't have lanterns or anything. It was electricity. We had electricity. We had laundry service, and this was furnished by the Vietnamese. You put your stuff in a laundry bag. Everybody had their last 4.
Cord knit bags. And you lock them up, and they just throw the whole bag in the laundromat?
Yeah, I just give the mama something. Well, there was no laundry. See, that was the funny part, and that's another story.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm forgetting.
Mama San would do your laundry. You give it to her in your little bag, and you have your last 4 of your serial number on there, so she knew how to match up there.
Maid, so to speak? Mama San?
Yeah, Mama San, she made the bed, she cleaned up your little area.
Guys were called Papa San?
Yeah, But yeah, Papa San was the older. Now we worked with Papa San a lot of times. He was like a helper, mechanics helper.
Yeah.
And Mama San would do your laundry. I even bought Mama San a couple of times boxes of Tide, because I, wash my clothes with this, Mama San. They would still take your clothes down to the local river and beat them up against rocks, because you could have a brand new undershirt, and after maybe the second time they do it, you had these little tiny holes in your underwear. And it was because they were just beating them, because that's the way they wash. But it's like, what did you do with the Tide, Mama San? We never found out. They probably sold it for something else and did maybe some officers' laundry with them, so what the
Exchange
hell.
it for whatever.
Yeah, whatever. But it was, you did little things for her. She'd clean your room up, she wouldn't
So
steal
those
from you.
real maid cleanups and
Yeah. Now, we may tip Mama San, and tipping was maybe you give us some Tide, cigarettes were a big bargaining chip, One carton of Salem could buy you anything.
Wow.
So, and that was going on. Well, and you try to, stay cool with Mama San, because like I said, she wouldn't steal from you, she'd watch out for you, she wouldn't let nobody else steal from you, So you had a little bit of a bond. But you still didn't know who was North Vietnamese and who was South Vietnamese, that was it. Like I was telling you earlier interview is, Papa San might be feeding you in the chow line, dumping stuff on your tray and stuff like that. And later on that night, he might be setting off some rockets, heading you away, and no telling.
What became the reminder that you were still close enough to the front line?
Well, I would say that would be the rockets.
Mortars
coming in, we call them rockets, 120s, and what they could do was they would set these things off. They would hook them up at night, and that's what I used to tell us, don't throw your batteries away, because Charlie's going to make a bomb and shoot, make a rocket. And somehow they could connect them to a clock that they could set maybe 4 hours ahead and walk away from it. And they could line them up, and they could just.
That could be your Mama San doing that.
Could be, no doubt. And there were instances where we thought we saw, and they grabbed a couple of Papa Sans walking around like they were marking off coordinates, and could tell. And probably one of the worst things that I ever saw was our barracks were like in a circle in a compound. We had the chow hall at one end, and the rest of the barracks surrounded it. And one night we got hit about 3 in the morning, and they hit one barracks, direct hit. It was the saddest thing I think I ever saw. Was we piled out of there after the sirens went off, that everything was clear, and this 2-story building was just smoldering. A couple of columns left in there, the smell of human flesh burning and stuff like that. And the worst part is I knew a lot of these guys that were in that barracks, that I knew, they are not coming home. So, those kind of things really knocked you out. And then the mortar attacks would happen, not at 11, it would happen at 2, 3, 4 o'clock, and then they would stop, because Charlie would know you're awake now and you did not have a good sleep. So go to work, GI.
They were probably principally agitating, but when they could mark it off and get a hit, that sends another
That was
message.
even better.
Yeah.
That was even better. What I was saying was that the aircraft was protected a little better than we were, because they had these concrete revetments that would be like a hangar, and they were out on the flight line. That's where they used to park the F-4s at night, or any other aircraft under these. I think they said it was like 12 inches of concrete and rebar in there, or some kind of reinforcements. and they could take a direct hit and maybe get a couple of cracks or something like that, but it wouldn't hit the aircraft. And we were maybe 100 feet from the flight line, at least where they parked them on the tarmac and stuff like that. They kept us close to, because that's what most of the other support units could get right on the aircraft. We in turn had to jump in a trailer and drive about 10 miles down.
So stuff like drugs, the constant harassment with rockets, boredom. And to fight the boredom, they just
Well, the boredom, like I said,
up your busy work.
yeah, there was really no boredom because after a while you found stuff to do when you were off. If it was no more than running around trying to find somebody looking, or you go in Da Nang, we had Da Nang, the air base, we had Marine Corps 3rd MAF, Marine Amphibious Force, and they were kind of like protecting the airmen out there.
Is that why the Marines were there, to provide the...
I really don't know, but that's where the 3rd MAF headquarters. Now, Marines branched out from there. They were on Marble Mountain, Monkey Mountain. These were all the outskirts, outside of the base. But their main force was right there, right up against us. And like I said, it was the 3rd MAF, then it was a village called Dogpatch, and then it was Freedom Hill, the big BX. And we were PX, BX, we would all go up there, base exchange, and buy cameras, recording equipment, music, things like that. But one nice thing I liked about the Marine Corps, they really had the best chow. Because if you went over there, you could get in, you got a uniform on, they let you in, you go sit down and eat. They had good chow over there. Yeah. And
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. Because
Really didn't care, just over and share it.
yeah, go over to share it. We had midnight chow for us. We could, if you were working late, come in like 2 in the afternoon. You could go into your chow hall and eat, no problem. Like I said, there was a lot of unity amongst the services. I was telling you also, I did a lot of driving between as an auto mechanic. I was working on vehicles. A lot of times I had to drive to a vehicle that had broken down. I was in the mobile maintenance truck. I would have to drive down there and usually start a vehicle, dead battery, something easy, change a tire, something like that, or get a wrecker to come and pull this thing back. But as you drive, if you had an empty seat and you saw soldiers or anybody walking, you slow down and give them a lift. They'd hop on and you just keep driving. Now, when you were going to hit a fork in the road, either they'd tap on the top of the cab, or you yell out, yeah, I'm going down this way, okay, let us out, and they jump off. But that was like an unseen thing. Nobody had to tell you to do that, and no matter who was walking, black or white, you stopped.
Stuff you pick up when you go
Yeah,
down there.
because, he was walking somewhere that, he would appreciate that ride, and you would too if you were walking. So we did a lot of that.
Suicide, was that a problem too?
Well, we had a few incidents. A really big one, another thing that sticks on my mind, I think we were coming out of chow at dinner time, and we were walking back to our barracks. As I said, it was a huge compound, and we just heard this massive one shot, boom! And the barracks was pretty close, and everybody was like stunned. The first thought is, Charlie's in town, time to take cover, get your weapon, get something, get out the way. But somebody came running out the barracks and says, the sergeant had just blown his head off with a .45 because he got a Dear John letter from his girlfriend. And I think he was getting ready to,
Okay.
Oh yeah. Never saw him. We did not want to. We all heard stories about how much blood was all over the sea on top of this barracks, and we was like, no, we can suspend that. But you know, it was something that I'm not going to say it was common, but we heard about it a lot. 3 or 4 guys kind of maybe didn't go out that way, just did stupid shit, you know. So, excuse me.
The enemy, depending on where you were, is made up of BC, the Vietnam Nationals, and the Chinese. How many of those did you see?
I never saw any VC alive. We had
Can you tell the difference?
No, I could.
No.
I could. We had 2 VC they had caught sneaking under the wire late at night the night before. And they killed them. But they drugged them to, you know, they were in the back of the chow hall. And, you know, on our way to breakfast that morning, the word came out, man, there's 2 VCs dead outside the chow hall, you know. We're like, what? Okay, you know, we ran down there to look at them and see what this was about, you know. Again, had nothing to do, you know. You get in country, you worry about dying. Oh man, am I gonna make it back? Am I gonna make it? Holy shit, can I make it back? Oh man, can I do this? And after a while, that was like my first 3 months. In my 4th and 5th month, it did not cross my mind anymore. We tried not to, because if you sat someplace and just stared up at the ceiling or something, yeah, that shit would come back to you. But we would move, we'd be doing something, we'd get out of the way, we'd go meet people. We'd get drunk every night, which what we did, and we talked about what we were going to do when we went back to the world.
Nobody seems to be able to tell me where all this beer and booze came from. Why was it so accessible?
Well, number one, Air Force had ration cards. Ration cards represented booze, beer, cigarettes. I think that was it. I can't think of anything else that's on that ration card. We traded ration. We didn't actually physically trade ration cards. I think they had our names on them. But if somebody needed a bottle, like I knew a few Marines that would come in out of the bush, and they'd come through Da Nang or come through where we lived. Our compound was called Gunfighter Village.
Say that again.
Gunfighter Village.
Gunfighter Village.
I was in the 23rd Field Maintenance Wing. And in that wing, we were 366 Transportation Squadron. But we all lived in Gunfighter Village. This was strictly all Air Force in there. There were aircraft, there were auto mechanics, civil engineers, the cooks, the cops, the K-9 police, also air police. They just had the dogs. We were all in the same place, so Gunfighter. But the Marines would come down out of the bush on their way to be evac'd if they were going to an R&R or something like that, you know. And they would need a day to, you know, turn over. So they'd come into town, you know, and it's like, okay, as brothers, you know, we'd sit around and like, man, can you get us some booze, you know, because Marines couldn't have any booze. They could drink beer, but they couldn't have any. Their ration card did not have booze in them. So we traded off, you know. Yeah, man, okay, here you go, man. Sit around, drink, have fun. And I had one instance where I had a Marine, he came in and he was going on R&R, and I had known him previously when he came through, and he was looking for a bunk just to sleep, just to go to sleep, because he didn't leave till the next morning, and all we were doing was going another 20 miles to get down to the airport so he could get out, you know, and I let him sleep. I found a bunk within the barracks where somebody was on R&R and wasn't coming back. I said, yeah, you can sleep there. Well, later on that night, the first sergeant came through, and he saw this Marine laying in the bed, boots on, M16 on the floor, hand grenade still attached. He's laying in bed, and I happened to be around, and he says, what is he doing in here? And I said, he's sleeping, Sarge. He needs a bunk. He'll be going in the morning before you wake up. Wake him up. Not doing it, Sarge. I'm sorry. I'm not touching him. Well, first sergeant, he just got mad and walked out.
Why did you not want to touch him, wake him?
Or number one, I knew he was hair trigger, just came out the bush maybe 4 months out there.
And where was the trigger?
And it was just a hair trigger. The gun was down here on the ground. I mean, the weapon was down here, the M16. I just wasn't gonna mess with him. Man, that was a
Wake
little.
someone up at a Marine Corps base and
At Air Force Base, we just.
explosion somewhere.
I just didn't want him to flare up. I didn't know what would have happened. But I knew the man wanted to sleep. That's all he wanted. Said I was a little. I wasn't your best airman either, and the first sergeant knew that too. So he just spun on his heels and left. We never were friends, but the Marine was gone before I woke up. He was gone. You know, he had made his way out. The bed was fine. He didn't leave no trash. He took his weapons. He was gone. So, you know.
Where's R&R for somebody like that?
R&R at the time you could go to Hawaii,
Oh, really?
Japan. A lot of people were going to Australia.
Oh. So it depended on what transports were available.
Pretty much, but not so much transport. A lot of times you're flying out commercial.
Really?
I flew into American Airlines to Da Nang. I flew out, I think, United. There was a lot, and they were probably under a government contract to fly, you know, strictly the armed forces. And they would take everybody, you know, the Japanese airline would go fly out to Australia and fly somebody, whatever. There was a lot of commercial, you know. But down in Da Nang, the aircraft never stayed on the ground too long.
You got shipped to Phuket.
Phuket.
What was, now this was south of Da Nang.
South of Da Nang.
What, 100 miles?
100 miles, about 100 miles because I had to fly down and
So you weren't bothered with rockets and mortars and...
no, that wasn't happening down there.
What was your job down there different than what you were doing in Da Nang?
Well, my job down there was basically they picked about 6 guys from my unit, from my squadron, mechanics, all over. We converged on Phuket Air Base. We did not go to any maintenance. We went to a wide open junkyard disposition cannibalization is the best way to put it. That's what we learned. And we were told to make a vehicle out of whatever parts you could. If there was a Jeep you started on, there was a Jeep wheel over here, an engine over there, a dashboard here, battery, and we put them together. There was some minor stuff that we could get, like we could pull wires, electrical stuff. Maybe we could get a new battery or something like that. But mostly it was what we could put together in that yard. And we did pretty good. I was down there for 120 days, and we put a couple of forklifts together, Jeeps. I think we did one asphalt paver, RT forklifts, rough terrain, and 20,000-pound RT forklifts, things like that.
So any damaged equipment went into the junkyard, and you went in there and tried to
Yeah, and it was basically
rebuild whatever you
kind of
could
a, you know,
useful.
kind of a salvage yard, because if it was a, you know, direct hit or something like that, they didn't even get into the yard. That was just scrapped. They just moved over someplace. But if it was like maybe the engine blew on this Jeep, but the rest of the Jeep was fine, okay, we yanked that engine out, we go find one that was the only thing good on that Jeep was the engine. And we grab that, drop it in this one, clean it up, out on the ready line. You know, we were all proud when we did that, you know. It was like, oh man, so-and-so's got that 510 together, man. So we go over there, you know, and he'd crank it up, we'd run it through the wires, he'd park it on the ready line and stuff like that. So we were like unsung heroes, because we got no pat on the back, no nothing. When that 4 months was up, back on the plane, going back to Da Nang. We didn't look forward to that, because while I was in Phuket, I could go down to Quy Nhon, which is a local town, and you could act like you were halfway back to the world. because at least you could drink, smoke a cigarette, talk to a girl. She was Vietnamese, you know, or whatever. Have fun with your buddies, listen to some great music, you know. At the end of the night, you're back on however your transportation was to get there. That's where you got back.
Prostitution real active down there?
Yes, that was the draw. That was the draw. Period. You know, if you were lucky enough to have transportation to get back to the base in the morning, you could spend the night. If you knew somebody who would come by and pick you up on the way back, I think there was a big ice factory down in Quin Yon. You know, so, and it was down there. We had the Army was down. You know, the presence of the Marines in Da Nang. The Army had the presence in Phu Cat and Quin Yon. So, and that was good. I mean, we enjoyed that.
Was it expensive? Probably not.
No.
How do you protect against disease?
I don't think those guys did. I don't remember anybody saying, "Here's condoms" or anything like that. You know. So,
Really?
no, I don't.
Gosh, I remember that. Every time we got to a foreign port, it was always the first thing you did when you sat down. Now, fellas, here's what goes on around here, and here's how you protect yourself. I'll be darned.
We missed that briefing
Oh,
because, like I said, it was.
you knew what to do if you did.
Yeah. And
Go to the
there was
doctors.
preferences. I mean, you know, that was, we used to sit and laugh because we'd see the line outside the next morning to the doctors, and we know everybody's on sick call and everybody's not coughing or sneezing, so like, aha, you know, so you know what was going on. But in Vietnam, you learned by what other people told you, what you saw, and if you kept your head down, your mouth shut, you might make it back home.
Now there's a newspaper that floats around.
Armed Forces.
Armed Forces Freedom.
Yeah,
something or other.
stars. I can remember something about stars. Armed Forces
What
stars.
kind of information can you get from that?
Well, that usually basically told all the good stories, what was going on. And another story I remember, we were sitting in the chow hall eating, and I think somebody had an Armed Forces radio. Armed Force, you want to stop? Oh, no, she looks away. The lady had excuse me. We're reading the paper, sitting in the chow hall, and top headlines on the front is LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, has suspended all B-52 bombings on North Vietnam until further notice. And the funny part about it is Da Nang is maybe 100 miles from Hue. Hue was where it was close to the DMZ, and we were all bouncing up and down because of the repercussions of the B-52s bombing up north and close to the DMZ. So what we were reading in the paper was totally different from what we were experiencing, because it was still dropping bombs, and the headlines were reading no more, B-52 bombings and all of that. So that was a big joke. And the reason we felt it so much is because any structure that was built over there was a slab of cement and tin roofs going up, real basic, easy to assemble stuff. So you could stand outside and blow, and you could make those walls rattle. That's how thin they were. So you'd feel everything.
How'd you stay in touch with home?
No.
On your computer?
No, there was no
Send an email?
computer. There were no emails. There were no phones. There were no. I forget what that phone is. They could bounce off satellites and stuff like that. There was this unit called Mars. It was a Mars station. And what you could do as an airman or anybody else was sign up to talk to your loved ones for maybe 15 minutes, and you would have to sign up and tell them who do you want to talk to, phone number they could be reached at, and the Mars people would contact them on the other end, set up the telephone conversation and everything, and call us back and say, okay, Bob, you need to be in this building at this time so you can talk to your loved one who you had requested this, to talk to. And you get one phone call, I think per year while you were there. And they called me up, and I was able to talk to my wife. You just go into this big room with a bank of telephones. Maybe there was a little partition, and you pick up the phone, and it's like, hello, and I'm talking to my wife on the other end. And you talk for 15 minutes. I love you, this is what's happening, blah, blah, blah. And you hang up, and that was it. And that was, not like today where they can call while they're in the barracks, go to bed, send emails over the computer. We didn't have that luxury. That was it. Or if you saved up your money, you could do your R&R in Hawaii and meet your wife there. That was the other one you could do, or whoever you wanted to meet in Hawaii. And that was too expensive. I didn't go on R&R. I stayed in country. I sent money home so my wife could buy us a car. I took I call what they call a hop. I went to base ops and said I wanted to go back to Phuket. And I had my orders saying I was on R&R, so I would catch a transport that went up to Hue and then back down to Phuket. That was a little scary. We never really touched down. We did what they call a touch and go, and the load master pushed about 2 or 3 pallets out the back, and that's as much of the way I saw. And we turned and went back south down to Phuket where I got dropped off.
There was a time when you ran out of food.
Oh, not run out of food. What happened was, that was in our other interview, the base itself was still leased from the Vietnamese. So the Vietnamese kind of had their base next to ours. They had a bomb dump, we had a bomb dump. They started burning trash in their bomb dump. It caught on fire, spread to our bomb dump. Our bomb dump blew up for 2 days. And I mean, we could not go to work, we couldn't do anything. You would see these huge bombs, you would hear them go off, boom. And you would look up and you just see these big, horrendous rings that would just roll out. And we were in helmets and flak vests for, I'd say 2 days, eating sea rations. We didn't have any water running. I don't know how that happened. They cut that off. So if you wanted to do anything, brush your teeth, you had to use beer. Sea rations were not ready to eat as they have now. Sea rations we were opening with a little, what do you call that, P52 or something like that, can opener. You open your sea ration, could be beans, I don't know, Spam, anything. And it was so we had a pack of cigarettes in there, a chocolate bar, some aspirins, and that's what we did for 2 days. Now I realize this is the Air Force and that was uncomfortable for us. I understand Army, Marine Corps, Navy, they were pretty tough, pretty mean if they were in the bush. So, but that was kind of tough for us those 2 or 3 days. But we couldn't leave the barracks, and every once in a while the sirens would go off, and we'd run to the revetments where we had all the sandbags piled up and everything, and huddling there. But that was it.
So when you're finished, you go back to San Fran?
Yeah, we when I de-roasted it, so what was it? One day in a drag bag back to they fly out. We get back on the plane. I meet several guys that were on the plane when we landed a year earlier, and quite a few guys that weren't on that plane that didn't make it back. But the nicest thing was the stewardess we were on there, and after a year we saw what we call, the GIs called the round eye, which is an American woman, you know, not a slant eye, you know, it's kind of, but the trip back, we were having good fun. We flew from Da Nang, I think, to Tokyo, and Tokyo was just a refuel, and they unloaded us right into this huge room, hurricane fence around it. We couldn't leave, we couldn't walk around we had a couple of soda machines in there, bathrooms, and we stayed there for like, I'd say about 2 hours, back on the plane, back to the world. It was funny, we didn't really care too much, but you know, because we were going back to the world, we didn't care, but it was just nice to see people, you know, that weren't dressed like we were, you know, all in green and whatnot, but it was good. Now, when we landed at Travis, that was a totally different story, because again, we went through more customs, checking bags and everything. They were looking for all kinds of paraphernalia. There were Army and Marines running around with M16s, clips in them, crazy. It was just a really wild scene at Travis when we landed, because you had guys that had just got yanked out of the bush, dropped back into the United States, and went, "Here's your ticket home, buddy. See ya."
No conversion time.
Nothing, no downtime. Before you got on that plane, if you said you had some kind of illness or a wound generated, they had somebody waiting for you to take you and you know, give you any kind of medical attention you need. But if you were standing there saying, "I'm fine," but inside you were going like this, you know, it was like nobody could tell. And the first thing he says, "Everyone who wants to re-enlist over here." And obviously there was nobody over there. And everybody else is going home, getting discharged. And you knew you were before you got on the plane. I still had 3 months left in service. And they said, "You're out. And we're not going to waste money to," you know, they didn't say that. But they're not going to waste and set me up in another base in the stateside, and then a month later, you know, cut me loose, you know. So I got out 3 months earlier, and I got money based on leave, separation, whatever, and a ticket back to New York City.
So you had to find your way. Well, you were still in New York, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You mean how'd I get here?
Yeah.
Okay. I stayed in New York for about 2 years. I got back in about 6 years. I worked for a dealership, Queens Village Chrysler, as an auto mechanic, the trade I picked up from the Air Force. One day, one of the guys I had worked with for over a couple of years he was retiring. All he got was a watch. Something in my head said, "No, you can do better than this." And I went down to what they call One Federal Plaza in New York, and they have all these government jobs on a certain floor. You can go in and pick, and you tell the lady what you want, and you fill out an application. Well, I did that. The job was for Water Villette in New York, upstate New York. That job closed. They called me and said, "Would you mind if we sent your application out here to this federal building downtown Detroit?" I don't know the name of it. McNamara Building. And they took my application and called me up about 6 months later and said, "Hey, we got a job for you if you want it. All you have to do is bring enough money to keep you in a hotel for a month, because that's going to probably take 4 weeks before you get your first check." So I came out here, started working for the Department of Defense, Tank Automotive Command, Warren, Michigan. and did 31 years with them, and now I'm retired. Yeah.
Any other questions, Ann?
I'm wondering if he knew Dennis, because Dennis worked at
Oh,
the
gosh.
Dennis.
Calhoun.
Oh yeah.
He's one of our volunteers.
Oh, no
He
kidding.
often does the video.
Oh, we tell Bob Jackson talk.
Sure.
Dennis was a tech writer. He was,
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
a big tech guy.
Oh, he's a
Yeah.
big yeah. He's a big VHP volunteer.
Story,
I
too.
think I worked for Dennis for a while. Dennis, I think he's retired now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Because he works with us with the volunteer
Oh,
program.
You tell him Bob Jackson said hi.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he knows
Good
my
point.
wife
I wouldn't
too.
have connected the two.
He knows my wife, Kathy. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dennis, long time friend. Oh, we were team leaders together. I forgot that.
Is your wife named Kathy?
Yeah.
Yeah. His wife is Kathy too.
Yeah. But
Oh yeah.
Dennis was over the 5-ton vehicles. I was over the family and medium tactical vehicles.
Stuff we talked about was his connection with the rockets on the ejection seats. Aircraft ejection. Boy, he was emotional about that.
Well, that was another story. One time in these concrete revetments, one of the guys was somehow mechanic, was working around that seat in there and set it off. The guy got shot on top of this thing and just, it was messy. Blood on the roof of this thing dripping down, everything, man. That was another horror story.
He wasn't even anywhere near the battle zone, and
No?
he had a real strong connection,
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
emotional attachment to the job he
Yeah.
was doing.
In fact, the only reason he's not doing the video today is he's on vacation. He was going out to the West Coast, going to Oregon or someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dennis was a cool dude. I worked with Dennis for a long time. We like I said, we were team leaders together. He was a nice guy. We worked. When I got to FMTV, I think he was already there. I knew him when we were both. He was a tech writer, and I was working somewhere else. As we grew at TACOM, he became a team leader, and I became a team leader. We supervised a group of maybe 12, 15 people. Our offices were almost right next to each other, and Dennis had the 5 tons, and I had another type of vehicle, which was a family medium tactical. Oh yeah, please tell Dennis I said hi, man.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to talk about?
Nothing else. I had one incident when I first got there, and I finally got my mosquito net. I was laying in bed, probably 2 in the morning, and the nets were like this over your bunk and stretched along a board. And as I was laying there, half asleep and trying to wake up, we had a rat problem also in Vietnam. Well, this one fell off the rafter, hit my mosquito net, and it gave like this, and then sprung him off. And he was off into the air. I was diving out of the net because you kind of tuck yourself in there once you get in it, and then you have a fan blowing on you all night. Now the fan is to keep the bugs off you, and it's reciprocating, so it's going back and forth, back and forth. And this thing came this far from my face, and then he bounced off, and so needless to say, I didn't have any more sleep that night. But that was my introduction to the big rats out there. They're big as cats. You can ride, throw a saddle on some of them. And that was it. The insects were like magnified. Mosquitoes were this big. Flies was what we call the national bird of Vietnam. and they were huge, and they were on everything. And like one more story, Papa San would bring his food, maybe wrapped in a big leaf. It was fish, and he'd open up that leaf, man, and the smell would kill you. You do like this, and when you look back again, it was covered with flies. The flies would attack it, and all he would do,
Gross.
and he'd sit there and open up that little leaf, man, and we'd sit there and be eating with Papa San. It's like, I can't take Papa San, you know. And if you knew Korea and kimchi, it was on that order. Really smelly. And that's about all I got, guys. I could go on, but this is good. I'm glad I was able to share some of these experiences with someone.
We appreciate it.
Not as hard as you thought, eh?
No, excuse me, not as hard as I thought.